Howdy, gang. Welcome back to another cruise with Smooth. Had a interesting weekend. Thought I had a problem with my car that turned out to be a hour's worth of diagnostic work. Sorry, I'm trying to get out of this parking lot here. For literally an $8 part. That if I was sure that's what it was, I could have fixed it in 10 minutes. And I had a theory that it was, but I wanted to make for sure because I rack up so many miles a day driving back and forth to work. I run about 130 miles a day round trip between where I work and home, so I don't mind spending the extra couple bucks on making sure that it was ready to go. I had a slight coolant leak. I noticed that my coolant temp gauge wasn't acting quite normal. It wasn't getting into overheat. It was actually running cool compared to what it should. And got under the hood and it was low on coolant, so I went to take it off to top it off just temporarily till I could make sure that I did have it fixed, and the coolant reservoir cap came apart in my hands. There was a part of it that goes down into the neck of the reservoir that had broke loose, and it was allowing coolant to overflow out because it wasn't holding pressure. For those of you that don't know about cars, I apologize. This is who I am as a human being. So they did pressure test the system, and it held quite nicely, but I needed a cap. So I now have a new coolant reservoir cap, and me and my little fuel-saving car are reunited. Before I get into today's show, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. If you've got anything that you want to hear my thoughts or opinion on, feel free to ask. Even if it's something I know nothing about, I don't mind doing a little bit of research or looking into it to form an opinion or to give my thoughts on this thing. So, I'm kind of running out of ideas, so I'm going to some of the stuff that was back-burnered for a little bit in my list of podcast ideas. And one of those was my thoughts on Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I know that there's a lot of confusion or contradictory information, at least, floating around about the late Mr. Epstein. But here's the things that I know for fact. I know that he was either powerful and or crooked. He swindled his way into or was given a multi-million-dollar house somewhere in New York by one of his clients. I know that he had his own little island that was full of allegedly microphones, cameras, and underage women. So, and I know that this is documented on Flight Manifest that Bill Clinton flew with him over 20 times. I want to say the number was like 23, 24 times. And that's just the times that Flight Manifests have been dug up that show that, hey, Bill Clinton was on this plane. So the number could even be higher. I know that he was brought up on charges several years back, and I want to say Georgia or Alabama, but he was able to plead a sweetheart of a deal. He got essentially after hours custody, or he was in custody after hours, so he was able to work his 9 to 5 gig and go to jail for 8 hours a night, Monday through Friday, and he might even had weekend release or something. I don't remember, but I know he pled a sweetheart of a deal on soliciting a minor, something along those lines. And then all the news broke about Epstein. Now, I will tell you that he was on the radar of some people way ahead of when he got busted. There were some people that you could call them alternative media. Not gonna drop names here, but they were saying the same kind of stuff about Epstein that was alleged before his trial, about a year or two ahead of all this breaking loose. So he had obviously not covered his tracks as good as he thought. Not saying that you could even do that with the sheer number of moving pieces involved with running a private pedophile island. There were also rumors about his island floating around. All this was unconfirmed. They knew the sweetheart deal that he pled a couple years prior to this, but there was nothing firm on current offenses, we'll just say. Well, he gets arrested, all this information starts coming out, and then he ends up dead. If anyone hasn't seen this, you need to Google the image of Jeffrey Epstein's original cellmate. Dude was built like a gorilla. I mean, just... He was actually, from what I understand, a crooked cop of some sort. I think he was involved in drugs, but he was a crooked cop, and he was a cellmate for a couple weeks. Guy had arms on him. I'm sitting at a red light so I can do this. Yay big around. I mean, just massive. I work with a couple people that are bodybuilders. And when they're coming into a bodybuilding contest, these guys will get even bigger. And this guy in prison put these couple bodybuilders that I know to shame. This guy was jacked. Well, Epstein had been heard to say on phone calls to relatives, and I quote, "They're going to kill me." I don't know if Gorilla Man actually beat him one time or not after finding out what he, who he was, what he did, blah, blah, blah. But Gorilla Man, but he ended up pretty beat and bruised at one point while I was in jail. And then he lost his roommate, was put in solitary confinement on suicide watch, which from my understanding violated some of the ways that specific prison was supposed to run. Don't hold me to all that, but my understanding he was not supposed to be left alone, and then even if he had to be, he wasn't supposed to be left alone for more than 30 minutes. Well, there was a several hour gap in his checkup rotation where they just walk by and knock on the door and check on him. Well, the cameras in the jail that showed his hallway, his prison cell, and blah, 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 went out, or the recordings went missing, take your pick. The guards were actually found to be taking a nap, and then Mr. Epstein was found killed. Now, I'm not citing this as the source to end all sources, but I've watched a bunch of crime TV over the years, NCIS Criminal Minds, NCIS New Orleans, CSI. You get the picture. I love those shows. And one of the things that they always cite in a strangulation where someone puts their hands around someone's throat and chokes them to death is the breaking of the hyoid bone. And I've studied a little anatomy, and I know that it's one of the more interesting bones in the human body because it is not connected to another bone. It's just there. Probably to tell us that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, because Jeffrey Epstein was broke. In most cases of a hanging, the hyoid bone will not break. I will shout out to another podcast here. Sure, a lot of people know who Steven Crowder is. If you don't, I'd highly recommend you at least look up this one special, Louder with Crowder, Epstein Didn't Kill Himself special. It was funny and interesting in my opinion. Crowder, for those of you that don't know who he is a comedian who is conservative, who decided to bring a conservative slant to late night style comedy shows. If you watch any comedy show that's on, say, Comedy Central, I'm not picking on people. You got a right to believe what you believe, say what you want to say if you're paying for the network. They have a highly liberal, anti-Trump slant on everything that they say. Well, he's tired of the anti-Trump, anti-conservative slant on everything, so he's making an anti-liberal. He's basically making the counterpoint to that show, and sometimes I really enjoy the sketches that he comes up with. They're pretty darn funny. But anyway, in my opinion, where this gets really interesting is Jeffrey Epstein had broke the hyoid bone. Now they know roughly what it takes in pounds of force to break the hyoid bone. They were able to, through allegedly insider information from someone that worked in that jail, get the precise dimensions of everything in that jail cell, the makeup of what it was, even a set of the sheets that were used in that jail cell while on suicide watch. Now, with a neck brace, Steven Crowder tried to hang himself. He's the approximate height of Epstein, maybe a little heavier. I I don't remember all that, but is the approximate height of Epstein. So they had built a mock-up jail cell for him to try to hang himself in. And now they rigged up a shearing force meter in the rope that he had so that they could tell when he crossed the line of necessary force to fracture the hyoid bone and strangle oneself, because his neck didn't break to my knowledge. Well, they did that, and in sitting down he could not muster enough force to come close to fracturing the hyoid bone. What he ended up having to do is pushing off the bunk facing forward, which was very hard to do, and he was just barely able to get over the force necessary to break the hyoid bone. It was a very funny video. I'd recommend you watch it. You can skip through quite a bit of it. I want to say everything starts happening in the last 15 minutes or so of the video. So I might put a link in the description. I might not. I'm lazy. I work a lot. But anyway, I don't think that Epstein killed himself. I think that okay, I'm going to name drop again here. Take Alex Jones at InfoWars, take Rush Limbaugh. All of them had something to say about Epstein long before he became the household name that he was and the meme that he is now. Well, anyway, I don't particularly think that it mattered to them whether he did or didn't do what they said he did. But if they were right about what he was doing, he got arrested and charged on all this, was not being released like he was in his sweetheart deal. So there was obviously something there to keep him detained. I think that if enough people that are well off and in high places and power wanted a person dead, that it wouldn't be that hard to pull off. It's my opinion. Money will buy a lot of things, silence included. So I don't think that he killed himself. I think that he was silenced to keep from the whole web coming unraveled, because I think he was rubbing shoulders with some pretty wealthy and powerful people, and they knew that he had blackmail against them, and so they decided to just eliminate the blackmail, in my opinion. Anyway, that's kind of all I've got on Epstein. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'd like to hear opinions. Again, don't forget to like, share, comment, rate, subscribe, notification bell. GoPro is hopefully coming next month. There's a few things that can get in the way of that, but we're hoping and fingers crossed. So anyway, everybody have a good day. Probably going to go ahead and do another video while I'm here. So I'm just in the mood to ramble. So anyway, I'll be back in a second. But y'all have a good one.